welcome to this week's hashtag Toe to Toe. I'm Andy Clarke, and joining me, Spencer Fearon and Eddie Hearn, and we are in the tremendous surroundings of Potter's Field in the shadow of Tower Bridge. And the reason we are is that today has been the open workouts for Saturday night's bill at the O2 between Ruiz and Whyte and Oscar Rivas on Sky Box Office, lest you forget. Eddie, plenty of questions for you as always, but first of all, just a quick word about our surroundings here, because this is a new one for us.
We might get asked to move on because our team blagged this location for a workout. I said to our guys, look guys, think outside the box. I want people to be tuning in from around the world looking at this workout saying, this is a serious event. Look at British boxing. Look at London Bridge in the background. Look at the embankment. Look at the Shard. And they come up with this.
Tower Bridge, but, yeah.
Well, no, the other one down there somewhere is London Bridge, isn't it? So, yeah. And it's like, this is what they came up with. So props to the team. This is a fantastic venue. And I don't even know if we've got a licence to do it here, but somehow we're here. And yeah, excited for the show, really. I mean, you know when you've got a good show when people who work for Sky, people who work on the team are sort of debating all the fights on the card. I mean, me and Spenny were just talking about Reactpour against Billum Smith. So this is a fight that's on at like 7:30 or something like that, and we're talking about the fights from top to bottom. I think when you look at the odds for this fight card, this is probably the most evenly matched pay-per-view event from top to bottom, even with Duffield against Aziz on at 6 o'clock. You know, that's another great 50-50 fight. So I'm really excited as a fan to see this fight. I'm nervous for Ruiz and Whyte because I see so many similarities in the build-up to this fight that I saw in the build-up to Joshua Ruiz as well. Two great amateurs in Ruiz and Rivas against two fighters that are still really learning on the job in Ruiz and Whyte and Anthony Joshua. Two situations where people are talking about the next fight. You know, is Dillian going to be mandatory after this fight? Is Joshua going to fight Wilder or Fury? And two guys who are absolutely relentless in their approach in Ruiz and Rivas, who have the mindset of, I have a chance to change my life on Saturday night, and I'm not leaving without the win. So Dillian's got to be war ready for this fight. We know that he mainly always is war ready for this fight, but the experts will tell you how it will technically play out. I'm just intrigued to see what will happen because Yvonne Michelle, Rivas' promoter, tells me from the first bell they will back Ruiz and Whyte up and make him work for every second of every round for 12 rounds. And if you do that, sometimes people say it's a very bad idea against Ruiz and Whyte because you're going to get to see a guy who loves to fight. But will Ruiz and Whyte, can he fight the intensity that Oscar Rivas does over 12 rounds? I could talk about it all day and debate it all day, which is generally a great sign that it's a really good fight. And I'm genuinely excited for this card, particularly the main event, because I don't know what's going to happen. Is Chisora going to get knocked out by Spilker? Has he had enough? Is he going to chase him down for 10 rounds, get him pummeled by the southpaw that he hates, and eventually knock him out? What happens in David Allen against David Price? I've absolutely no idea. But when you buy a ticket or you tune in on pay-per-view, you need the uncertainty of not knowing what is going to happen. And I believe we're going to get a great night.
So with regard to the top of the bill, just tell us as you understand it, I don't know if you can make an official announcement, what the title of that fight is and what it will mean.
We can make an official announcement because it was confirmed about an hour before the workout, which is this fight is for the WBC interim world title. It's for the mandatory position for the WBC world title. That fight has to take place before the end of May 2020, which some people might say, well, that's a long time away, but really in boxing, it's not. It means one interim fight for Ruiz and Whyte. So one more hurdle to overcome. And you know, Ruiz and Whyte's right, what he just said in the ring there. In boxing, things can change any time. But at least when you're the designated mandatory challenger, you know your shot is coming. So there's still work for us to do if he wins, to keep pushing, keep pressuring. That's the job of a promoter to do. And we've been doing it for the last year. But finally now on paper, we know that if Ruiz and Whyte wins on Saturday, he is the mandatory challenger for Deontay Wilder.
I guess, Spencer, it's probably been quite a delicate situation, really, because Ruiz and Whyte's claim is so strong and has been for a while, but the governing bodies do what they like. These things aren't decided by consensus.
I think it's always tough to defend a governing body. But let's look at the WBC, right? They've got Eddie Hearn phoning them up every day, WhatsApping Maurizio Sulaiman, saying, what are you going to do about Ruiz and Whyte? Come on, publicly speaking out. Then you've got Al Heyman going, we don't want to fight Ruiz and Whyte. We've just done our mandatory against Dominic Brazil. Then you've got Bob Arum phoning up Maurizio Sulaiman going, don't make Ruiz and Whyte mandatory. We want to do two Tyson Fury fights. It's not easy to sometimes make decisions. You've just got to make the decisions that you believe are fair. And I think in balance, when you look at Ruiz and Whyte being WBC #1 for 600 days, the big mistake was making Brazil the mandatory. That was where it all went wrong. But again, it's over now, and we have to try and move forward. And we thank the WBC for actually listening to us and acting in a way of giving something that Dillian Whyte deserves, and that is the mandatory position.
Do you think that Dylan's become a victim of his own success? And especially because, like, with the people inside the game know that he's a vehemently tough individual, and no matter who he fights, potentially could beat him. But regardless of that, the fights that you go into, I don't think people are going to come out and be the same fighter after.
Well, he's a roughhouse, isn't he? You know, he's that guy where you think, oh, he's a nightmare. And it's all very well Oscar Rivas saying we're going to stick it on him from the first place. It's like, mate, then you might have to go to some horrible places. So really, he's a bit like, you know, in that respect, our class fighters like Luis Ortiz, Alexander Povetkin, similar kind of guys where you look at and you go, when you look at the voluntary list to choose, you don't pick Whyte, you don't pick Ortiz, you don't really pick Povetkin, do you? You sort of look at them and think, oh, what about Brazil? Or, you know, like we did, what about Andy Ruiz? And that backfired. But I think the changing momentum of heavyweight boxing now is, I think there are so many fighters in the top 10 that can beat everybody else. You know, you look at that top 10, and I put Rivas in there, I put Dillian Whyte in there, I put Usyk in there, I put Ortiz in there, I put Hrgovic in there, I put even Hunter in there. You know, these are a lot of top heavyweight fighters that have the ability to go on and beat the other guy. You just saw Ruiz beat Joshua. You might see Rivas, but you might see Ortiz beat Wilder. It's not, none of them are, you can't rule any of them out, can you? So that's what's so exciting about the division. But I think Dillian Whyte, listen, if Dillian Whyte, people were up for fighting Dillian Whyte, Wilder would have fought him ages ago. He's been calling it out. It's a big fight. But you look at Dillian Whyte and go, we don't need Dillian Whyte. He's got a good chin, he's got plenty of heart, he'll knock you cold with that left hook, and he just won't give up.
Well, you mentioned Andy Ruiz there. I'm sure that's the name that's never too far from your thoughts after June the 1st. And here's a question, our first question from Blue Corner Boxing. What's the deadline for making that rematch, and just what's the current state of play? What's happening?
Well, we know that the date is November 29 or December the 14th, so it's a long, long time to go to that fight. We're probably a week behind in terms of when we intended to make the announcement for that fight. That's because we've had a couple of approaches from a couple of countries that made some very interesting offers, both financially and historically, to be honest with you. But really, it remains November 29 or December 14. I think people in boxing who know boxing, who, especially on his training team, will say, what are you even thinking about? It's Cardiff, mate. I mean, that's where you do this fight. You went to America, you lost your title, you come back, you do it at home. 80,000, biggest fight in British boxing history, probably. Then there's the argument of going back to the scene of the crime. You know, I mean, you're an ex-fighter, you probably have your opinions on this as well. For me, it's got to be where AJ is comfortable. There's no point AJ saying to me, which he continuously says, Ed, do it where you want, I'm easy. No. Yeah. This is too big for me to make a call on. You have to decide. There's a lot more money to do it in America. I promise you the money ain't even coming into it for him right now. I said, you got to do it where you feel most comfortable. Rob McCracken and the training team, you know where they'll recommend it happens, and that's the common sense thing to do, is to do it in Cardiff, I think.
But isn't it more of a fact of, with him losing the title in America, it being back out in America, not only that, because we know that Sky, the zone heavily invested, it would be more easier for that fight to happen back out in America.
Yes, easier as in more money, easier as in Ruiz would be a lot happier. Yeah. But then when you say that and you say, okay, Ruiz would be a lot happier, what does that make you want to do?
Make him unhappy.
No. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, but at the end of the day, I don't know, it's a tough call for me, and that's why I said to AJ, you got to make the call. And it's AJ's so chill. He's like, no, wherever you want it. I'm like, no, please, you got to tell me, Cardiff or New York. So at the moment, you know, the view for sure of Rob McCracken and the training team is Cardiff. That's the you know, everything that Spence said, and AJ's mentioned that as well. It's admirable, very admirable. It's very important, this fight as well. Got to get it right. You know what I mean? So. But AJ feels that it doesn't really matter where it is. So, incoming news. We could debate it.
Well, we just need to. We could indeed, and that's why we need to rattle through a few more of these questions that have been submitted for us. Some good ones too. I like this one from Jack. Could there ever be a possibility of a Matchroom versus Queensberry card?
I think there's a lot of great fights to be made. I mean, you know, you've got off the top of your head Billy Joe Saunders against Callum Smith. You've got Anthony Yard against Joshua Buatsi, which I think is. That fight's nailed on at some point to happen. I think, you know, two great light heavyweights. going down the card, who else have they got? Can we do Charlie Edwards against Sonny Edwards? I don't think that really works out.
I don't think that'd quite work. I don't think that'd quite work.
I mean, Liam Williams is looking good at middleweight.
Josh Warrington.
Warrington, the rematch with Kid Galahad. Can we do that one? Should have won that fight in the first time around. So all these things, I mean, there's always been debate about, you know, an Al Heyman card against Top Rank, and easier said than done. And you know, some people, the politics in boxing always upsets fans. Let me try and simplify it for you. It's really straightforward. You, not you, but you, are my boss, right? My job is to deliver all my top talent on your platform. Frank Warren's job is to deliver all his top fighters on his platform. That's it. That's all you've got to understand. So to take my fighters over there, it's not that I don't want to do it, it's that I've got a responsibility. Same with the Zone, same with Top Rank and ESPN. Doesn't matter what happen. Next week, we've got a brilliant fight in Dallas. Maurice Hooker against Jose Ramirez.
Wicked fight.
Unification fight. You got an ESPN fighter coming over. We had Anthony Crolla fight Lomachenko on ESPN. If we get the Luke Campbell-Lomachenko fight done, you've got us doing a fight on ESPN for America. So money talks. This is the key. But we are also driven by our bosses who say, imagine if I go into Sky and go, yeah, well, we're going to do AJ against, I don't know, Fury on BT. All right, mate? No problem. It's not a case of, oh, great.
Great. Do you think there could be a synergy, just like when Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao?
Yeah,
the link up between
the fight you're talking about.
Yeah, it was mega.
Exactly. It gets to a point where it's like, okay, we'll find a way.
Yeah.
Everything else is, you know.
So if AJ was to win back the belts, then like
I think the AJ Fury fight, would be probably a dual pay-per-view. That's a fight that is of the size where you could go to both broadcasters and go, guys, the only way this happens is if you both do it on pay-per-view. And in that situation, the bigger platform goes, no problem. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like HBO, in that situation said, no problem, we don't have a problem with that. So it's all about the size of the fight, it's all about the demand, it's all about the money, you know. And also, I think that we're in a situation now where we have to let fighters go and have that. I mean, you know, we had one the other day where it fell through in the end, but Jack Massey, who was a Queensbury fighter, was going to fight Lawrence Okoli. John Ryder has been made an offer to fight Billy Joe Saunders. I have no problem with John Ryder taking that fight. If it's financially beneficial to the fighter and the network approves, because I have to get that approval, then it's no problem. And that's what you're seeing, for example, with Hooker against Ramirez. Made a big offer, Arum looked at it, spoke to ESPN, let the fight happen on the Zone. So, in answer to your question, great in fantasy, hard in reality, but as a fight fan, I think there's some great fights to be made.
There definitely are. So just time for a couple more. From Amy, what next for Katie Taylor?
Had a meeting with Brian Peters yesterday. Really interesting situation now where the aim was always to become undisputed champion. Completed it, right? So what's next? What do you do as a fighter when you become undisputed? Do you go up a weight class and try and become undisputed at 140? Do you try and pick out those mega fights? Amanda Serrano, Delphine Persoon rematch is one that everybody would love to see. So right now, I think the three aims of Katie Taylor is win world championships in different weight classes, rematch Delphine Persoon, fight Amanda Serrano, you know, and then who knows domestically what's coming up. Chantel Cameron looks like a good talent. Terry Harper looks like a really good talent coming out.
Chantel Cameron's got a final eliminator.
Exactly, against Bashir. I think that's a tough fight as well. Terry Harper fighting for the IBO world title, really good talent.
I rate her.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, she's a good fighter, under the radar. You know?
I'm surprised you didn't get her.
Yeah, we will, don't worry. But even Natasha Jonas, who was expected to had that chance to fight Katie Taylor, lost to Obernorth, she's come back with 2 or 3 wins. So I would like to try and make some domestic women's fights as well. Terry Harper against Natasha Jonas. Natasha Jonas against Chantel Cameron, Terry Harper against Chantel Cameron. These kind of fights where then you can go and make the winner against Katie Taylor. But I think for Katie now, she's achieved so much. It's like you have to push these athletes. Like you'd never worry about Katie's dedication, whether she's fighting Natasha Jonas or Delphine Persoon rematch. But you have to give them goals to move towards. And I think for Katie, the inspiration to become a 2-way undisputed world champion is something that really ticks her boxes.
Okay, last one. And I'll do this as a kind of 2-parter. It's about Wilder Fury 2. Your thoughts on it. So for you, Spencer, your thoughts on what would happen should they meet again. Eddie, your thoughts on whether it will happen at all?
Well, I believe it will happen. I think what's happening at the moment is Bob Arum doesn't want to give Tyson Fury another gimme fight because it cost him a lot of money. So he wants to make, and he doesn't want Wilder to fight Ortiz because he thinks he might lose. So he's saying to Al Heyman, let's just do Fury Wilder in November. Stop mucking around. Al Heyman's promised Luis Ortiz for not accepting the Anthony Joshua fight that you're definitely fighting Deontay Wilder. So I think that fight's going to go ahead, and I think you'll see the Wilder Fury fight take place in February or March next year. Who wins before we go over to the expert? I think Wilder will show less regard and respect in the next fight, and he'll try and come out almost like it's an extension of the 12th round. So I've just had him really hurt. Let's go. I think he gave him too much respect. Whatever you say about Tyson Fury, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. By the looks of things, getting in there and actually doing it is very, very difficult to do. Tyson has a knack of winning, by any means necessary. Ugly, exciting, funny. He's got that knack. Billy Joe's a little bit like that, you know. And I think sometimes you get those fighters. Like, I wouldn't rule Billy Joe out against Canelo. I wouldn't rule him out against Golovkin to beat those guys, because I think he's got the way. You know, you saw it against Lemieux. And you saw obviously Fury Klitschko and Fury Wilder, where for those special moments where you have to do something outrageous, they seem to find a way. And I think they do people's head in the build up to the fights as well. Over to the expert.
I haven't got a clue who's going to win that fight. I'm just going to be real. Yeah. I'm just being real because we don't know if it's going to be an extension like of round 13, and like Deontay Wilder saying, well, I've been in there and I've had you down twice and I'm just going to go for you and not be as reserved. But I think like Tyson Fury is a fighting man, and when you're coupled with that kind of skill, you could outbox anybody. And I'm saying, when I mean like anybody, Tyson Fury could go down historically to give loads of great fighters of our past, like a Riddick Bowe, like an Evander Holyfield. And what are you talking about? Yeah, because of his style, his awkwardness, and he does things that are not coupled to his body type. Do you know what I mean? And that's mainly because he's been a traveller. So he'll idolise someone like Roy Jones. And remember in fights where he'll be touching the boot, trying to throw the shots? These are not things that are coupled for somebody of his physicality. So because of that, it's a hard fight to pick. I would slightly more want to lean to Tyson Fury because boxer puncher, I like to favour the boxers, and he is a supreme boxer. But with that demonic punching power of Wilder, you never know. But I would slightly favour Tyson Fury, but with a punching power, you don't know. And that's why I lost.
I didn't feel that the confidence of Deontay Wilder going into the Fury fight, I thought that would be
higher.
Yeah, and I think like when he went in against Brazil, he had that just a ruthlessness and just crushed him with the right hand. But he didn't, and I think this is one because Tyson's very good, but also Tyson gets in your head, where I thought he would show more ruthlessness in that fight against Tyson Fury. But he didn't. He was almost second-guessing himself at times, whereas other fights he goes in and just knows, I've just got to detonate on your chin and it's over. So can he have that mentality against Tyson Fury, who will make you second-guess yourself, one, because of his awkward style, and two, because he'll talk you out of it in the build-up.
Well, chaps, thanks very much for your company. That wraps it up for Hashtag Toe to Toe for this week. Been a great day, been a great workout, and amazing surroundings too. Myself and Spencer will be back on the podcast later on, so make sure you catch us for that.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.